We are back working on the abandoned 1956 Tri-5 Chevy, and we are going to get it closer to running and driving for the first time since a high school kid crashed it in the 1970s and his mom took it away from him. It's been a lot of work on this car with a little budget, and I'm running out of time because I'm moving. You know what? Let's not pick the transmission up. You can look at it down there. It doesn't have to be up here. We're gonna get to work right away here, but this episode is going to be kind of a hodgepodge of tasks because we're waiting on some parts to come in the US mail, but nonetheless, it's going to be very productive and it's going to be cool because we are doing, one of the many things we're doing is an intake manifold installation on our Chevy 350 that's going in this car. Casting number 14093638. We got to get cracking on this work here, so later we'll get into the details about this intake manifold and why we are using it. I'll just tell you right now, it's temporary, but I want to get it cleaned up. I want to get it painted and installed on the engine, and there's two ways that we can go about cleaning this intake manifold up and getting this little bit of surface rust out. We'll get into that in a second because we got to choose which route we're going to go. We're also going to clean, paint, and install this water pump on our 350. There's a little story behind this water pump as well. We'll get into that in a little bit. All right, I got to stop flabbing the McGavins and we got to get to work. And oh, stick around because we're also going to be digging through some vintage hardware and sourcing all of our own bits and pieces for all the stuff to bolt together. The transmission's here, the rear mounts are here, the bell housing's here because we're going to chase the threads in all these holes, and we are going to put together bell housing bolts so we can bolt our bell housing to the back of our engine and bolts to bolt our transmission to our bell housing. We got to drum up, if you will, our own water pump bolts. We have actual General Motors intake manifold bolts that have been in my family for many years, came out of a coffee can, and well, we'll look in there later in the video. But yeah, we really got to crack on this. I got to get this stuff out of the way. Or should I take this to the parts washer? I can't make my mind up. I'm gonna roll the engine over here for right now. Boy, I can't wait to take this bag off and start bolting stuff to it. This intake manifold's got about a half a dozen things in here waiting to kill you. Holy Toledo, buddy. Are you serious? Look at the size of that meal. What are you gonna do with it? That's gonna take a long time to eat. You're gonna have to put some of that in the deep freeze. Oh, and you got a little spider in there too. I bet we could find the neighborhood cat in here. I think that's an orb weaver. Egg sacs. These are little bioregions in here. Oh, come on, Big Mama. I'll transport you. So the decision we have to make on cleaning techniques with this is, do we just scrape everything out and scrub it with parts cleaner and blow it out with compressed air and then paint it and install it? Or do we do what I really want to do and put it in the blast cabinet and media blast it top and bottom to get it spick and span and then get surface rust out? That's how I really want to do it. Well, the challenge with that is this factory oil shield or splash shield, if you will, whatever you'd like to refer to it as. Are we going to be able to get any media that gets up underneath here? Are we going to be able to make sure that we get all of it out? I'm 99% sure we could get all of it out. There's that 1% that I'm just thinking about. You know, I'm thinking we're just going to blast it. I mean, we got this gap here. As long as we can get everything out, we'll be fine, which I think we will. Come on. It's just a garden spider. Yeah, let's media blast it. That's going to be the easiest and most thorough way to get all this cleaned out in there. I'm going to pre-clean it before blasting it in the media cabinet. I'm not going to be too picky, but I want to get as much dirt and grease and grime and six-legged critters and whatnot off and out of here so that we don't get that into our blast media. You may be wondering why I'm not just putting this intake manifold in the parts washer. Well, I drained it recently because it's time for a fluid change, and since I have a pending move looming over me, I don't want to spend the money to fill it up with 20 gallons of solvent and then have to dump it out in a couple months. So I'm cleaning away on this intake manifold here, and I've quickly come to the realization that I'm not going to have the intake manifold cleaned and painted as lickety-split as I thought it would be. I'm starting to have second thoughts on blasting the intake because underneath this splash shield, there's more nooks and crannies for things to hide, or for blasting media to hide, as I thought earlier. That's very crucial because underneath our intake manifold, it's the gateway to the west, the gateway to our oiling system on our 350 small block. So we don't want that media in there. Yeah, I thought this would be done already. I was a little too rambunctious and I popped one of these pins out. There are 4 of these soft pins. You could call them a rivet if you'd like, that hold this splash shield on. And I guess we're just gonna have just 3 pins now. And of course, after it's all clean, we're gonna hammer this back into place. Now we could just take this off. You know, aftermarket intake manifolds don't have this, but aftermarket intake manifolds typically aren't gonna have this exhaust crossover, which makes it really hot on the intake manifold under here. There's more than one theory. My opinion is this heat shield keeps oil off of the crossover part of the intake manifold, therefore helping keep that oil from cooking. But oil still does get up in here, and when it does cook, it turns into all this stuff that we cleaned out of here. And then because this shield is on here, it'll hold that up inside the shield and keep it from falling down and into your oiling system. But also you could just say that this keeps hot oil from splashing on the bottom of the intake manifold, reducing your horsepower and fuel mileage. I don't have replacement pins on hand. What's that? Yeah, you're right. I should just take this shield off so that I can clean the bottom of the inside of it and the bottom of the intake manifold properly. And then after it's all cleaned up, we'll see if these pins will go back in tight. We can even put Loctite on them. But if they don't go in tight, we're just gonna have to wait and get replacements, wait for them to come in the US mail, or tap threads in here. Why do you know, you always have to make so much sense. Just let me do stuff the wrong way, it's quicker. It's kind of funny if you think about it, how this shield was beat up, right? We didn't do that. So somebody had been banging on it before to get burnt up oil out, or you never know, they might have popped these rivets off before. And for all we know, they put rivets back in here and didn't do a very good job, and they were gonna fall out on us. Okay, the key here is to get this to pop out without breaking the shield. Okay, I need a piece of wood. Well, I had the perfect piece of wood handy, but I can't find it. This is ludicrous. Come on, just let me get this little victory, please. Oh, jeez. Oh no, this is so serious. Oh my gosh. Just as tight as can be. What if we went like this? Oh, come on. Okay, if we break this heat shield, we're ordering an aftermarket aluminum intake. And you'll say, you should have done that in the beginning. Well, you know what, man? Here's the thing, okay? Not only is this a shoestring budget, all right? But I gotta pack up a whole bunch of stuff and move it. If I bought an aftermarket intake manifold and put it on this engine, then this big heavy chunk of cast iron would be sitting around and I'd have to haul it. I'd rather just put it on the engine and then I don't have to carry it. Oh, come on. It does what it's told. There you go. There you go, Sister Susan. Okay, now do what your sister does. Did. Previous tense, past principle. Of course. And you better remember which direction this goes on. I really thought that this would be at least painted, if not installed already. The trash bag's still on the motor. Okay, well, I've been doing this for way too long now. Maybe I should try a different tool. What's the definition of insanity? But here we go to use the same tool again. Oh, I can see where somebody's gone after it before. Well, think McFly. We know we've been down this road before. It's been a while because we are primarily a 6-cylinder individual. And that's, you know, that's not exactly by choice. That's kind of, you know, kind of budget dictated. I do love me some 6-cylinder though. Not the best choice of tool, but we're being careful. That's why we got a small hammer. You know what? I don't like that. Yeah, stop that. No, yeah, that's just gonna cut it. Okay, all right. I got it. I got it now. Vice grips. I need vice grips. Are there vice grips in this garage? Oh yeah, my favorite vice grips. These are older than I. But what we need to do, pound this down a little flatter. Do you ever just randomly think about Lawrence Welk's humble beginnings? Boy, is that thunder an omen? Yeah, this car is going to be on the road in no time. Mark my words. I should have never said that. Improper use of a tool. I knew it. I saw there was a little crack here. I'm not making this up. I saw it before. I made it bigger. Somebody had been in here before. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. Might as well just go all the way with it. Yep, might as well. Darn it. How? Why? See, even an expert like me can get themselves in trouble. Oh, those might actually go back in tight. The good news is that the rivet will still be able to hold that in place. As long as the rivet's tight, I'll be comfortable with it. We could actually try to do a little actual repair to this too if we really wanted to. Here's the piece that broke off. If we're gonna run this shield in this engine, there's two things that we want. We want the pins to stay in, and we want the shield to not rattle. I know, we should have just done that in the beginning. But hey, from here on out, we're picking up the pace. And if these rivets go back in nice and firm and we feel confident that they're not gonna fall out inside the engine, we're doing an install. Let's just scrub this up real quick, and then we're blasting an intake manifold. Yeah, shoulder presses. Hey man, same thing a dumbbell's made out of. On our cast iron intake manifold here, we do have some mating surfaces for gaskets that we do not want to beat up and make rough with our blasting media, which I'll tell you what blasting media that is in just a second here. This is a crucial one. Our carburetor goes right here. Our thermostat housing goes right here. We don't want that to leak. The least crucial mating surface here would be this one. A little gasket goes there. That's for our distributor. That goes through there. But the most important, you could say, would be this mating surface all along here. All this, and on that side there. That's where our intake manifold sits on our cylinder heads. That's got to be tighter than a fill in the blank. The blasting media that we are using to media blast our intake manifold is known as coal slag. Coal slag is a byproduct of the coal industry. Probably swept off the floor, bagged and sold. And it's a fairly heavy, fairly coarse abrasive. I blasted my fair share of cast iron with coal slag, and this coal slag doesn't quite have the same bite as it does when new or when fresh. It's been recycled a number of times, But every project's different, so this is going to be interesting to find out if we ruin our intake manifold or not. If our intake manifold was aluminum or any material softer than cast iron, we would stay at 125 psi and we would run soda. We would use baking soda and soda blast it, or we would use crushed glass beads. But what we're going to do, just to be careful, is we're going to set ourselves, we're going to set the regulator on the air compressor to about 80 pounds. This is pretty neat. I'm interested to see how it works out for us at 80 psi with the coal slag. And we're going to start with the mating surface for our distributor gasket. You know, it's the least critical mating surface. All right, here we go. The brisket's in the oven. Got our magnetic work lights in place. Let's do it. All right, we're running with no exhaust on right now because we're just gonna see what happens here. If I turn the exhaust on, okay, sounds fancy, but it's just a shot vac. If I turn that on right now, we won't be able to hear each other. The air compressor's not gonna kick on immediately, so we'll be able to talk. Okay, let's see what happens. Nice. We'll see how smooth or rough it is. I was trying to time out my air usage and stop before that kicked on. Ooh, a little dusty in there without the shot vac. I mean, exhaust system. Oh, okay. It's not smooth as baby's new butt, but it's smoother than it was. I'm good with that. You know, you're going from that to that. If that was chewing it up and creating a surface that would not seal, especially to our cylinder heads, we would put tape over these mating over all the mating surfaces on the intake manifold, and then that way we don't blast those areas. So this is a judgment call that I am making. Whoa, don't have my steel toes on. This is a judgment call that I am making for me in this situation. This is not a how-to video. I don't make those. I don't need that kind of liability. So your mileage may vary. Ugh. Alrighty, so I spent about 10 or 15 minutes or so and made it this far and realized that it's probably going to take me an hour plus per side, because even though you watched me make out pretty well getting some of this paint off, it started to get real difficult to come off. I think we just started in an easy spot. So what I'm doing now is I'm spraying some brake cleaner on, and I'm letting it sit for a little bit, and you can see it's bubbling the paint up. Now there's much better products to use to help get paint off, you know, paint removers, but this is, I got brake cleaner on hand, so that's what I'm using. But linked in the description is some good paint removers that I've used before and that I need to reorder and have on hand. And see, then I can hit this with the wire brush. And what I want to do is break that up like so. Let me get some more light here for you. This is reality, not cable television. So now, see, after I break that up, I can do that. And that'll give us a huge head start on the blasting and save probably 2 to 3 hours. It has taken a very, very long time to get to this point. I had issues with a threaded piece right here that kept coming out of the gun. I had to keep fixing that. And I had a bunch of jammage issues and then also water in the air issues. And once I fixed all that, it turns out that the paint wasn't as tough as I thought it was, because then we really started cooking in here. And also I put a different tip in here, a brand new one with a smaller inside diameter, and that helped as well. So that all went fantastic after that. But since I spent so much time with this intake manifold, I did notice something about the casting number, and we'll get to that in a little bit here. But yeah, let's do the other side now, and we will find out in a future video when we have the engine running in the car if media blasting this mating surface was a bad idea or not. I think we'll be fine, but I can tell you this. If I was counting in what I'm worth per hour, we'd be at a huge loss here. So, but whatevs, let's keep going. Alrighty, while all that is curing, it is vintage hardware time. Family heirloom hardware. Yes, that's the type of heirlooms in this family. Let's see if we got any candidates here for water pump hardware and bell housing hardware, transmission hardware. We're not concerned with fuel pump hardware or header / exhaust manifold hardware at the moment. And I did say that we do have General Motors intake manifold bolts, so we don't have to worry about that. It's just the water pump and everything else I probably said 5 times. And we do have ARP hardware for the timing cover. We got to take care of that. And we have a new gasket we're going to put in there as well. There is something neato burrito in regard to the oil pan I'll tell you about later in the video, but let's get to the hardware first. All right, do we have any, ooh, okay. These lock washers right here, these are 3/8 lock washers. That's what we need for a water pump. We need 4 of them. Would these work for a water pump? No, they're too short and they're too small. They are coarse thread. We need 3/8 coarse thread. We're just worried about water pump bolts right now. Probably shouldn't touch my face. Flooded basement stuff. If you can relate to flooded basement, I'm with you, brother. Oh, that smell. Oh, it takes me back. We'll put this off to the side. We might need that, but not for the water pump. This stuff's pretty big. These big honkers here, these lock washers, these might actually be what we need for bolting our transmission to the bell housing. So we'll keep that in mind. Okay, that's not anything we need. Yeah, I think this is, no, I don't think there's bolts in here. Nope. That's all big stuff too. Woo! Jackpot in this one. Take a peek in this one. Skunked in that one. Grade 5 bolt. Looks about the right length, except for it's not a 3/8. It's a little small. The key! Wonder what that goes to. This is a 3/8 bolt that I just pulled out of that coffee can. It's too long for a water pump, but it threads in like it should, because it's a 3/8 coarse thread. And I pulled this 3/8 coarse thread nut out of that can too. So now I know I got a 3/8 nut here. And let's say a guy's not quick on the draw at eyeballing and can't just go, oh, 5/16. Oh, 3/8. He's got the 3/8 nut here, so he can be digging. Oh, what about this one? Nope. No good. What about this one? Oh, that's 3/8. Okay, set that off to the side. Was that a technical tip? Technically. Cha. Alrighty, check it out. Sorry, I'll never say that again. I got some water pump voltage going on here, and I got some stuff set off to the side for things other than the water pump. Where's that pencil? This hardware and this pencil is probably as old as this car and a lot older than this engine. All right, let me show you where we're at here. So for our water pump bolts, you can barely see that. Okay, we need one bolt that is 2 3/4 inches long, and we need 3. Sorry, I got something in my eye. We need 3 bolts that are 1 15/16. We got one that'll work for that bolt, but we don't have any that'll work for that. This bolt here, measuring the shank, not including the head, measures out to 2 7/8, which is a little bit longer than 2 3/4, but this'll work. And this bolt's gonna go in this hole right here, and it shouldn't bottom out. We'll find out for sure when we install the water pump. I'm pretty sure that it won't. And the reason why this bolt is longer is because the water pump's thicker right here. For these holes, the water pump's, it's thinner, less cast iron. I found 4 3/8 lock washers right here that we're gonna use, and these 4 3/8 bolts, they're too short, they're not 1 15/16 inches, so these are not gonna work. So we need 3, let me write that down, well, I'll just circle that. We need 3 15/16 inches bolts from the hardware store, and the water pump came off of an old 265 cubic inch V8, which is the original engine that was in our 56 Chevy. And the fella that gave me the water pump, when he gave it to me, he actually said, here, you can have this for a core. And I said, does it work? And he said, I don't know. So we're gonna try it. It looks to me like it's been rebuilt. And since we got a 265 water pump, this bolt configuration, the 1 2 3/4 and the 3 1 15/16, that's what you need for factory Tri-5 water pump bolt setup. Okay. What now? No, actually, let's not lose that. Yeah, man. Sorry, I won't say that again either. I just got done digging through all of this and doing a bunch of measuring on a bunch of stuff and figuring some things out. Wash my hands so I can write this list for you here. I found a bunch of hardware that's gonna work great for us, and actually I want your opinion on something. We'll get to it in a minute. But this is stuff that we are missing. So this is hardware store list. And some stuff, there are some onesies and twosies that I did find in here that would work. But if you got one and you need four, might as well make it all match. You know what I mean? You're not gonna find anything these days at the hardware store that has the markings and whatnot that this stuff has. You know, I wouldn't need the hardware store so much if the ungodly amount of family heirloom hardware wasn't 1,500 miles away from me right now. This is just a little bit that I brought home the last time I was up there. So yeah, I'm gonna go to the hardware store and use currency to get the rest of the hardware we need. And I'll tell you right now, they are not going to have a 1 5/16 bolt. Okay, they might have a 3/8, 1 3/4. Actually, no, they probably won't have that either. They'll probably have 1 1/2, and then it'll jump to 2. So we have to make things work. All right, I'm gonna take off. I'll be right back, and then we will bolt together engine, bell housing, transmission, mounts and car stuff. I don't know why I was doing this. And verify that our measuring and our, well, putting together the hardware that's gonna allow this car to go down the road from scratch. You know, you can just go into the restoration parts catalog and water pump bolts, manual transmission, the bell housing bolts. You can just order half this stuff in kits. But not here at Freeman's Garage. We have to use this hardware that's flooded basement hardware. It's got patina, man. It's got character. It's got soul. And it was made in the USA. That's the most important part. And we're gonna get to install our freshly painted intake manifold and water pump. That's exciting. The engine and transmission are not going to be installed in the car in this video though, because we don't have things like a flywheel or a clutch. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Upcoming video. And we need to roll the car around a bit to put the engine in anyways, which means we need wheels and tires. Hint, hint, wink, wink. We gotta test fit the oil pan, because the oil pan might hit our steering. All right, I'm rambling. I gotta get going. You know, this gift of gab, it's a blessing and a curse. Well, I am back. I've got the goods, and it's actually many, many, many hours later because I ended up selling a motorcycle. And so things are shifted around in here, and I actually blew the crotch out on my last pair of unholy jeans. So now I'm wearing my last pair of backup jeans, which are extremely holy. A guy has got to hit the thrift store and to freshen up that wardrobe. All right, hardware, 56 Chevy, try 5. Let's do this. All the washers and the nuts are from our heirloom hardware collection. This is hardware store. That's for our rear mounts. This is hardware store. This is also for our rear mounts. We'll hash all that out in a second here. This is for our transmission to bell housing, and these are from our heirloom containers. This is from our heirloom containers. These 3 are from the hardware store, and this is for the water pump. Had a brain malfunction there. These are from the heirloom. These are from the hardware store, and these are the 7 we need for our bell housing to the back of the engine block. This is fun because now we get to start finding out if our measurements are gonna work out here or not. And I was right about the hardware store not having the exact sizes that we needed. Of course I was right. What else would I be? So this rear mount, there's gonna be one on each side that's gonna go right here. And that's what our 4 1-inch hardware store bolts are for. If we can't get it to go in easily, we're going to very quickly make a 3/8 thread chaser. These are not blind holes. Threads go all the way through. There's no bottom to it. I've got this homemade thread chaser ready to go for the larger holes I made a long time ago. Actually, when we put piston rings in our 250 straight 6 for our 67 Chevy C10 here in Freeman's Garage. Videos linked below. Eye protection because I have nothing to prove and a little bit to lose. hearing protection because my ears are blown out from a previous line of work. Tinnitus. Tinnitus, tinnitus, tinnitus. Tinnitus. Tinnitus? Oh, I'm gonna put all this on. I might as well put these on, huh? And one thing that I don't do is, oh, did I just do it? I typically don't plug in my angle grinders if they're sitting face down like that, because sometimes you plug them in and they scoot off on you. Not good. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to just slice a few grooves straight across these threads, and I'm gonna try to do it at a bit of an angle. Usually doesn't work like that, but we're gonna create some biting edges for cleaning out our threads. Yeah, boy, I'm sure itchy. And I get into some poison ivy I didn't know about. You know, maybe I should make the weekly shower an every 3-day shower. Make sure you take your gloves off and handle this before it cools down. Just want to make sure you get a real good burn into your skin. And that's the final product. These are some very sharp biting edges. All right, let's see how this works. Oh, it's already working great. But we need to remember that our goal here is not to cut threads, right? We're not trying to cut threads into this cast iron, so we're still gonna be a little bit careful here. You just don't wanna get too buck wild and you end up ruining something, you know? We're just trying to clean out any paint or dirt, things like that that might be in there. Oh yeah. This is working great. I could turn it a little bit further, but we are getting some resistance. So bring it out. And as soon as this demonstration is over, the rest of the thread chasing that will take place in this video will be done lickety split. We'll speed it up a bit. That's further than we need to go. It's nice and smooth, and it's not loose and sloppy. It's tight like it's supposed to be. Oh, that's beautiful. Well, okay, I'm gonna do the exact same thing on this hole and then the two over here. Yeah, then we move on. This is pretty cool. This is working out. All right, things just got mega serious here. This hole here, the threads are not cooperating. They are starting to strip out our thread chaser a little bit. Not good. So we're actually gonna run a tap through it, see if we can't get that straightened out. 3/8 16 tap. We'll be careful here. The 16 is the thread pitch. That means 16 threads per inch. You would determine your thread pitch differently if you were dealing with metric. Okay, here we go. Just very gently. I'm still thinking of this as more of a cleaning, which is what I'm hoping is happening here, because I don't actually want to cut. We're actually just going to stop right there and see what happens. And this is a blind hole. Let's just see what happens if we put the bolt in that we're going to use. Well, did go in further. Oh, sorry, did I bump you there? It is an improvement, but still not, you know, I don't want to be cutting threads. That's the thing. Okay. Yeah, see, that's not going in far enough. Okay, let's try the thread chaser one more time here, because I want to avoid the tap. Yeah, that's not working, and it's not the tap at fault here. Whoops. What was I saying before I was so rudely interrupted? Yeah, I don't know, we might as well just run this sucker down all the way, huh? Oh, look, see, yeah. See, we're not cutting cast iron there, that's actually just crud. Yeah, we're not cutting threads. We're just cutting through the junk. See, right there, that just shows you something there where, you know, a tab could be a cleaning device that's a little bit better than a homemade thread chaser. You'd have to compare it to a store-bought thread chaser, you could say, or a purpose-built thread chaser. We are almost done here fixing this hole. And I would say that that's probably gonna be about it. Okay, doing this as quick as I can. Why, I just started thinking about the Wizard of Oz. What is wrong with me? Oh. Well, let's grab a motor mount here. If we had a washer on there, oh yeah, perfect. Now let's chase our threads where we bolt the transmission to the bell housing. Oh yeah, see, this one's playing nice. And we got, where'd you go, buddy? We got a tap here if we need it. No, we definitely don't for this one. Well, we bolt the transmission to the bell housing. Remember, I got a question to ask you, or I want your opinion on the bolts we use. Okay, that's a little tight. I think we'll run the tap through it. Oh my gosh, what'd I do? Break this thing? Okay, we're all the way through. Just another example of thinking that you're just gonna whip this together. Just gonna do all this and that in 2 seconds or 2 hours, whatever, and of course it doesn't work out that way. Yeah. Sweetness, our bell housing and rear mounts are good to go. Test went great. They're ready for installation in the vehicular when the engine and everything is all ready. And there are 4 heirloom, okay, I'll be serious, heirloom bolts for our transmission to bell housing. I told you there was something I was gonna show you and ask you about them, and here it is. 2 of them are perfect length. The threads just come all the way through the hole. I'm not sure from the factory, can't tell you off the top of my head or anything if that's exactly the length that they were. Not sure. So we got 2 like that, and then these 2 longer ones here. Now these longer ones, they do have part of the shank is not threaded. And I'm gonna mark the threads with a Sharpie and then take one of these out to see exactly how much thread we have into the bell housing, because we've got about, oh, I don't know, we got this much or so shank with no threads. And I just want to make sure that we're not completely, almost completely past the threads, and or just barely threaded in there and sitting on bare smooth shank, if you know what I mean. So my question is to you, do you approve of these bolts? Do you think they are secure? We do have heirloom lock washers on here. That's exactly what the 1956 assembly manual calls for. Is it just me, or are you kind of seeing crooked? Just like on the 1966 to 1968 Batman television series starring Adam West, where every time they showed the villains inside their lair, the camera angle is crooked. What is wrong with me? There's that part of the shank that has no threads. Let's see, where's our Sharpie mark? Ooh, you know what? I think we probably are fine. There's the Sharpie mark right there. Yeah, I think we're good. We're good to go. Nothing but thread. All right, let's check our bell housing to the engine block bolts, and then we'll install the water pump and the intake manifold, which I still have something to tell you about that intake. We are not going to take the engine off the engine stand and actually bolt the bell housing to the back of the engine block today, because we would have to do it twice, because we gotta take it off to test fit our oil pan, see if our oil pan will clear our steering. We're gonna have to set the engine down to do it, and the pieces that we need for the front engine mounts are on back order. So instead of having to take the engine off the engine stand and putting it back on 2 times, we'll just wait till we have our rest of our engine mount pieces and our clutch bits and whatnot, then we can just do it all at once in one shot. There's the thickness of our washer. Oh yeah, we're gonna be good. These bolts are the right length. Our 2 longer bolts for the bell housing to the engine block, I know they're gonna be correct since we're good on these. All right, water pump intake manifold installation. Oh, that looks good. Before you know it, we're gonna have a run in the driving 56 Chevy with a 350. The water pump, I did not go buck wild on painting it all perfect because, well, that paint's not cheap and the water pump might not work. That's one thing we'll find out in a future video here in Freeman's Garage. And we're gonna install the water pump before the intake manifold, but I was gonna tell you something about the casting numbers. And here it is. The casting number on this intake manifold is 3973469. I told you at the beginning of the video that this was the factory stock intake manifold for this engine. Someone could fight a bone. This intake manifold is a factory stock intake manifold, but not for our engine. The intake manifold is a 1971 4-barrel quadrajet intake manifold. Our engine is a 1987 and up TBI engine. It's completely obvious if you just look at the thing, but I'm in such a rush that I didn't even think about it. And the guy I got the engine from, who I've known for many years, he told me one story about the engine and the intake manifold, and I've just held on to that in my head, what he said, but I've realized later that it's not quite actually correct what he had told me. Long story short, he told me he had taken the engine out of a particular truck of his about 15 years ago, and when I picked the engine up from him, he said, hey, there's the factory intake manifold, take that with you, and I just grabbed it and took it, and here we are. But the truck he told me that this gas TBI engine came out of actually was a diesel truck, so that wasn't right. And there were no shenanigans with the story, and the guy's not simple-minded. The thing is when you spend enough time around older people, you start to realize that the older they get, the less and less they remember. And when you've got 40, 50, 60 years of parts and projects and stories piled up, they tend to forget half of it. This here is actually a gasket for a TBI intake manifold. Looks a lot different than ours, doesn't it? We're going to reinstall the oil shield now with our 4 pins. And we are going to be using a product here that's going to make it possible. I'll introduce you to that in a second. We're going to make sure that these holes are extra clean inside, which they already are, but we'll make sure they're extra clean. And we're going to get these pins extra clean as well, and we're going to scuff them up with some sandpaper. So this product, we're going to be using it on these pins, and it's going to permanently hold them and keep them from falling out into our engine. And we're doing this right now before installing the water pump or anything else. That way there's a little bit of dry time. It won't fully cure in a few minutes, but a little bit of dry time just to help keep things in place as they should, which the pins should be tight enough themselves to hold things in place. But, you know, I'm just being extra cautious with this. So this is a Permatex product. It is a red Loctite and it's high temperature. It's rated to be good to go up to about 450 degrees Fahrenheit, and it takes about 500 degrees Fahrenheit in heat to attempt to remove it or to disable the product, if you will, according to the packaging here, according to the manufacturer. I trust this to not let these pins come out and destroy our engine. And it's about, it's close to 15-ish clams for this. But totally worth it, and a little bit goes a long way, and this will probably last you. It'll last a lot of people probably years, this little bottle, because you just need drops. And of course, it is linked in the video description. So if you need some, I've done all the work for you. It's typically good to go after about 20 minutes, but it won't be fully cured for about 24 hours. There's a surface prep product that'll reduce that a little bit. You just gotta read all the details on it. But we're not using that, we don't need it. We got time. Something to note here is that these are all blind holes. So nothing's going to drip down into the intake manifold. I just did a final wipe down on our oil shield and then remembered that, oh yeah, we have to bend it back into place. Ow, it's a little sharp. I've pretty much hammered this back in the shape. There's a little bit, I'm not too, not 110,000% happy with it, but I think we need to just go ahead, and if we need to do any touching up around the edges later, we can do that. This is very crucial for the life of our engine. But at the same time, we could do this for hours, going back and forth. I just don't want the heat shield to be in the way of our intake manifold gaskets. I'm trying to guesstimate filling the hole about 1/3 of the way, but it's not really working out that well. So we're gonna have a little bit of excess, but we're just gonna have to deal with that. We'll have to wipe it off or something. or something. That's the one I'm worried about. No, I'm kidding. It's going in nice and tight. Just what we wanted. Actually, if one's going to be the problem child, it's going to be this one. Yep, cooperating now. I don't see anything wrong with a little bit of extra. Well, I mean, we'll wipe it off, of course, but I mean, that'd do nothing but just hold things together better. But of course, I wouldn't go. All 4 pins went all the way down, nice and tight, exactly how they're supposed to. A little bit overkill on the Loctite, but that's probably actually a good way to go. That'll be fine. It'll be at least 24 hours for that to be completely cured. So I think that's going to be fantastic. And it's important that we document all of this, because if we have issues in future videos, we have information to fall back on. And there's one little spot here where I kind of want to bang that up a little bit further out of the way, because this is where our intake manifold is going to sit on our cylinder heads. Although, let me grab an intake gasket. We actually have 2 different types of intake manifold gaskets. We'll touch on that in a second. But this is why it is very crucial, in my opinion, to test fit your gaskets first before you put your intake manifold on, because you can see things like this. Okay, that's not even going to be in the way, but is the cylinder head and intake manifold still going to touch? I mean, it's not in the way of the gasket, but that little piece I was concerned with might still be. But if you look at the thickness of the gasket, even with some compression, when we torque the intake manifold bolts down, I think we'll be just fine. We'll also test fit our manifold on our engine without the gaskets secured in place as well. And about securing the gaskets in place, we will secure them with with a securing product, you could say, onto our cylinder heads before you put the manifold down so that they don't move. And it's good we're test fitting, because I can see here that if we line up these holes for our intake manifold bolts on the ends, these center bolts, they are not perfectly lined up. They are good to go. They are fine like that, but they're not perfectly centered. So I'm glad we looked at this, because if I were to adhere the intake manifold gasket to the cylinder heads first, I would have done it more like that. And therefore, our bolt holes on the end would be a little off. So now I know that I want to have it set up for those holes, and then those will be fine. All right, let's let that have some alone time. Let's install the water pump. A water pump that came off of a 265. It's one thing I love about General Motors. All this old stuff and new stuff just bolts right together. Let's install our timing cover gasket first. Should probably do that before we install the water pump, huh? Now this has all been scraped and cleaned before. Just want to make sure we don't have any dust, dirt, or residue. Because there was a little bit of gasket material still in the timing cover. This mosquito is trying to get me to cut myself. Texas heat and mosquitoes. I'm going to put on a glove, because as soon as we're done here today, kidding, I'm going to be preparing food for a child. So I want quick cleanup, and I don't want said child eating our TV. I just love that chemical smell. Brings me back to my childhood. This is where you have to make sure you don't stab through the tube and through your hand. We are opting for the Permatex Black. It's more oil resistant than the gray, in my opinion, and plus it says oil resistant right on it. We are doing just a skim coat, just a very light layer, because we are going to let our gasket do the sealing. This is just for a little bit of extra insurance. Kind of like when you're using a knife. You let the knife do the work. So we don't want too much, or we will cause leaks. And plus it'll help our gasket stay in place while we put the cover on. Oh yeah. Oh, come on, Becky. Stay on there. Stay on there. Why did I just think of saying Chris Thomas? I called the timing cover gasket Becky, and then I thought about calling it Chris Thomas. I'm not crazy, but I am gonna do a little bit, even a skimmier skim coat on the cover. Not really necessary, in my opinion, but just in case. Just put my finger in the RTV. And I dropped a washer and it rolled into the floor dry. Boy, this front engine mount is in the way. Okay, we got it. We're good. Pretty cool, the provisions for the front engine mount were still on these engine blocks when we hit 1987 and went beyond. Is anybody going to San Antonio or Phoenix, Arizona? Oh my gosh. What would Charlie Pride do? What would he do? Can you believe this? I don't know where that washer went. I'm deleting this, you're not gonna see it. Do you ever find yourself thinking about getting into the Golden Girls? Yeah, me neither. Well, it's just about water pump time. We're just gonna snug these to where we like them. We don't need no torque wrench. What do you think, we're crazy? Are we underneath a tree feeding a pigeon on a limb? Homemade thread chaser time for our water pump bolts. Oh yeah, you need this. So we got 4 water pump bolt holes. They are all blind except for this one here. It goes into the water jacket, so we'll have to deal with that accordingly. Oh yeah, we're nice and clean in there. Some squeaky clean threads, man. We're going with gray. This is Permatex Ultra Gray. Linked in the description as well in case you need some. And same story as the timing cover gasket. Just a thin skim coat here. Just for a little extra protection and help hold the gasket on for us. But really what we're gonna do is we're gonna let the gasket do its job. Here's our long water pump bolt. Gotta get through all that meat there. All that General Motors cast iron. All right, this last bolt here, it goes through our water jacket. We're gonna put this thread sealant on it. We'll get this snugged up here, and then this saga is done. We get to put on the intake manifold. That's really what I've been waiting all day for. I just took this bolt out. Didn't go in all the way. I'm wondering if maybe we bottomed out. We know we don't have a problem with our threads. The threads are, it's good. No issue there. But we make it, wow, okay. Yeah, it's as if we're just bottoming out. Okay, here's a shorter one from the family heirloom bucket. Might be a little too short. Let's see what happens here. Well, we're grabbing threads right there. So I'd like this to be a little bit longer, but I don't see why there'd be a problem. Yeah, our other bolt was bottoming out. A little bit longer on this might be better, but I mean, it did get a good chunk of threads. I mean, it's gotta be almost a half inch in the threads, so I'd say we're probably good. We are nice and clean in here and good to go for intake manifold installation, but I just want to make sure that there's there's a little tiny piece of paint in there. I'll get that out. All right, time to put the push rods in. We want to do this before we put the intake manifold on so that we know that we're putting them into our lifters where they're supposed to go. We're not adjusting the rockers right now. Everything's just going to be sitting in here loose. Okay, I've just cleaned up on the wire wheel here. 11 of 12 family heirloom General Motors, authentic General Motors intake manifold bolts. At least 20 years old, probably 40, 50 years old. One of them flew out of my hand and went down under a bunch of stuff, and it just never ends. I'm just trying to get this intake on. It's at least 100 degrees in here. Let's hit these with some parts cleaner. Just make sure we don't have any kind of oily residue on them, because some of these we're going to be using a thread sealant. We'll just finish prepping our intake manifold bolts here. And then we'll just do a final wipe down on our mating surfaces, on our intake manifold, and on our cylinder heads. Quick, easy, we're slapping this on. We got to use a little bit of RTV. Get to that in a second here. I'll show you my plan, because there's a million ways you could do this. All right, we're ready to rock and roll on dropping this intake manifold down. Just gotta do a little bit of RTV edge, set our intake manifold gaskets in place, and I want to show you these two gaskets here. Our Chevrolet 350 cubic inch small block V8 engine here is a 1987 through 1995 version. And in the book, the intake manifold gaskets are going to pop up like this one right here, where this front water port, which is right here, that will be open, and the rear water port will be blocked off except for a little hole here. And the earlier engine intake manifold gaskets will look like this, with both front and rear water ports wide open. Now I would just take the 87 through 95 intake manifold gaskets and install them like so, but we're not gonna do that. We're gonna use the technically wrong intake manifold gaskets. And that's because on our 1971 intake manifold, the front port is open, but the rear, it looks like this. There's nothing there. This is the 87 to 95 gasket. Now I would have no issue really, just using this gasket. It would work, but with that little hole there, it just kind of, I don't know if it's OCD or what, but it just bugs me that even though it's gonna be sealed off, this will be sealed off because this doesn't go anywhere, right? For lack of better terms. But I don't like the idea of that hole being there and water, in between the cylinder head and the intake manifold. It just kind of creeps me out. So we're going to use this, the older style intake manifold gasket, like so, just because it just makes me feel better. So 1971 intake manifold, 87 through 95 engine with aftermarket heads. Note that as well. But on the factory heads, you would have a rear port like that, water port as well. And then two different gasket options and going with the older one. Here's a little Freeman's Garage trade secret. Don't tell anyone about this. You only get one shot at setting this down on the RTV. It's a heavy cast iron intake manifold, so. If we didn't set this up, we'd have to do this. Yeah, not gonna work. Well, I mean, it could work, but this is better. Okay, we gotta make sure, double, triple check, everything is good to go, because as soon as we start putting the room temperature vulcanizing product on here, we're fully committed. And we're using the gray to do a light skim coat around the water ports, including the rear ones, even though they're technically halfway blocked off. Still, just how I do it. And technically, with these gaskets, you don't need to do this, but I do it anyways. I think it's the thing to do. It's the way to be. Okay, here we go. As soon as I do this, we're committed. Well, we're in for it now. We're gonna get one shot at this. That's already thicker than I wanted it to be. Oh, I already messed it up. Hold on here. Hold on, we gotta take this RTV off. Oh, what was I thinking? Yeah, it's a good thing that's all I put on, so there kind of is a second shot. If you put on just enough that you can wipe it off right away. I've got things set up here to trip on, which is ridiculous. And So the deal is I was going to set the intake manifold down on our engine to test fit it and see our gap on our China walls and just make sure everything's going to be a good fitment. Take a guess at how much RTV we're going to need on the China walls / end rails. Okay, now this is going to be, instead of lifting the manifold and then tripping over everything and spinning like this and trying to do all that, we can just go like this and set it down. Okay, test time. Just trying to limit the embarrassment of something going wrong. Wait, hold on, hold on. Okay, I'm gonna try to have these gaskets set up as good as I can. Okay, let's set this down. It's kind of like a practice dry run. Yeah. All right, I got an idea of how thick we're gonna go on the RTV. All right, now it's RTV on around the water port time, water ports. And I've got a helper out here now who's retrieving super glue. You'll see what that's all about in a second. Okay, now it's time for the super glue. This may be controversial. Typically I would use a rubber cement or a contact cement to stick my manifold gaskets into place before setting the intake manifold down. That way things don't shift out of place like they did when we did our test. I am fresh out of the contact cement, but I had this brand new super glue, which is a Permatex product as well. And I've never used super glue to do this, so we'll see what happens. The RTV will hold the gasket in place a little bit for us, but most likely not as much as I'd like to. It's usually how it works out anyways. Doing around our two center holes and our holes on the very end, and I'm doing it on the gasket and on the cylinder head itself. And when the two meet, it should be an instant bond. Now remember, I want to line things up from the holes on the end, not the center holes. Whoops. Come on now. You might be a redneck if you assemble your engine with super glue. And see, the thing to do, the smart thing, is to put it on the gasket first. So then you have to hold it like this and try not to touch anything while you are forced to do it on the cylinder head with one hand. That's the smart way. Is this good super glue? If it is, it'll have isocyanates in it. Not good for you. It's just been a minute and we're cured. We're good to go, but it's gonna be able to cure for another minute because we're gonna put our RTV on our China walls, our end rails now. And then this will definitely be good to go. And I'm noticing now that our paint job we did in a previous video is not holding up well in these cylinder heads. But we will have to address that sometime down the road because I'd rather just drive the car. I do not want to get RTV in here. So we need to take a second to cover this. Oh, didn't get all the way through. Come on. Gosh damn it. Oh, are you serious? This has already taken me long enough, bud. All right, let's try that again. Oh, success. I'm opting to use the black for our China walls because it is more oil resistant, but that is risky because we might not have enough to do both of them. Oh, come on, I knew better than to do it with the cap on. Oh, now I popped a hole in the side. It just never ends. My goodness. Oh boy. Well, now I'm causing problems. Oh no, we're completely jammed. And now it's everywhere. Ay, ay, ay. This is just, wow. And now it just looks like garbage. Yeah, that's not what we want to happen. Yikes. Calm down. Almost dripped this right on that new paint. Oh, this tube. Well, I guess subscribe so you don't miss any future videos and find out if this intake manifold is going to leak oil all over the back of our engine. Yeah, I intentionally am ruining this on purpose to trick you into subscribing. Or coming back and watching more videos. Jeez. Why? Yikes. I am just steaming right now. But you know what? There's nothing we can do. We have to just continue. There's a big air bubble in there too. And I think from now on I might use a brand new tube when I do this, because that would avoid this. It's too late to turn back now. We really did try to seal it. Da, da, da. This tube's a piece of junk. Oh, this is very embarrassing. Tell you what, I gotta do something now that I don't ever do. It's been in the back of my mind, but I've never, I don't know, maybe I have done it, but where's that tape? Now we're gonna ruin the roll of tape. So I put some masking tape on the ends here so that any RTV that overflows, squishes out, doesn't get on the paint. Although with my luck right now, the tape will probably rip the paint off. But since it's just that the RTV was just not coming out, I ended up with spots that were real thin. So then I, tried to double it up, and then some spots ended up with too much. Complete, embarrassing, unprofessional disaster. So now I'm trying to get this a little bit thinner. It doesn't need to be a ½ an inch tall. Don't tell anyone about this, okay? Do not. It's just between us. I've got a reputation to maintain. Okay, that should be okay. Just glad my kid wasn't in here to see that. I'm gonna do just another little skim coat on this side of the gasket around the water ports. Very thin. Seriously though, subscriber, come back because this might leak. Well, I doubt it, but you never know. Come back anyways. Yeah, I am never doing this again without using a full tube, a brand new tube, because that was heinous. That's the word, heinous. And now I'm gonna put gloves on to put the intake on. All right. Nothing else go wrong. All right, improper stretching routine done. Couple practice runs. Straight down. I think I did an all right job. Let's run some intake manifold bolts down. I want to see some squeegage coming out the ends. Okay, I just spun the engine around because I think it looks cooler from the front with the car in the background. Now these four corners, they are blind. I'm gonna move a little bit. They are blind holes. So they don't need anything. They're gonna go in dry. But the other 8 in between, those go right into the, right through into the, well, they just go right through to underneath their intake manifold, which means that they get oil splashed up on them because they're not blind holes. So we could use the black RTV again, but because it's oil resistant, but we're going to use this head bolt and water jacket sealant. We're not going to tighten these down yet. Just run them down by hand. Now I know this is called head bolt and water jacket sealant, but if you read the back here it says, and other bolts which penetrate through into water / chemical jackets. So we're going to use this. Tightening from the inside out. And we are looking good here. So far, I'm liking it. We're just missing a distributor. Oh, okay, I'm just not, we're missing a few more things, okay? But we got a lot done here while we're waiting for back-ordered items. So, I mean, there's nothing we can do but wait. So, doing what we can, and we are a lot. I mean, this is, the next video with this car, we're probably putting the engine and transmission in the car for good. And wheels and tires. I just got a wild hair up my BU-double-T. Let's torque this to the spec of 30 foot-pounds. Okay, I've gone all the way around in a proper pattern, and we're at 30 foot-pounds for all of them. And yes, you do lose some torque through extensions and things like that, but just torquing it just for fun. Normally I wouldn't even torque these, so it's just for fun, and I'm not going to undo this 50 million times to go around here. Yeah, but that's kind of cool. I'm going to wait till the RTV is fully cured before I clean off the excess and take the tape off. What color should the oil pan be? And what color should these valve covers be? I'm kind of thinking maybe black or orange for the oil pan. Maybe even keeping the valve covers this silver color. I don't know, but what's more important is everything on back order coming in. Getting the wheels and tires on this car, getting engine and transmission dropped in. But hey, we did it, man. We're one step closer to driving the car for the first time since the 70s. If everything shows up that we need, next video, car will be off the jack stands, rolling. All right, I appreciate you. Man, I'm a loser.
How are you gonna drive it if
what?
the window is smashed out and...
Windows? We don't need windows where we're going.